Agent Romanoff. You miss me?
Oh yeah, Charles, we got ourselves an X-Men fan.
Captain.
Your Highness.
Captain, big fan, Spider-Man.
Hey guys, and welcome to Film Artsy, your #1 source for all things films and movies. And one movie that's coming up in Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. However, it's really interesting with the lead actor, Simu Liu, jumping on board for this film. He actually has a really unique story when it comes to going into acting as a career, and he's talked a lot about some of his difficulties before he was chosen for this role, and it's something that's really inspiring and interesting to look at. So we wanted to jump in and take a look at this because there's some really cool things that he shares in several interviews he's done along the way. So starting things off, there was an interview with Simu Liu where he talked about his real life growing up and how he related it to one of his roles that he had that kind of popularized him as an actor in the TV show Kim's Convenience.
You know, those of you guys listening who have grown up in immigrant households will know, but you know, when you share a house with people who grew up in a completely different time with completely different values and you know, oftentimes speak a totally different language, you're just gonna butt heads. You know, there's gonna be moments where you disagree, and you know, that's putting it very lightly, of course.
Yeah. And this is something we've seen a lot with Simu Liu, but he's very open to talk about some of the struggles he had growing up and trying to assimilate into an English-speaking and white culture.
I remember a time not so long ago where I was deeply, deeply ashamed of my Asianness. I saw it as a hindrance rather than something to be proud of. And something like cultural pride seems so foreign to me just because I spent so much of my life trying to be white. And I feel like so many of us did because we just wanted to assimilate away all of the things that made us different.
Later on, as he started to gain more traction as an actor and became more and more popular, we've seen him on various occasions talking about the difference now in embracing his culture and who he is as a person rather than trying to blend in the person that he was.
For me, it's been an interesting few, months where I've had to, embrace all of the aspects of being a Marvel superhero. And yes, it was an incredible experience to shoot, but also, it's given me this incredible platform through which I can talk about issues that really matter. So in the beginning of the pandemic, it was, talking about the importance of wearing a mask and the importance of, everybody kind of doing their part to get through this.
It's also really interesting to see the perspective of Simu Liu really jumping on board and finally getting to join up in something as massive as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And just hearing the story about that struggle of waiting and trying to figure out whether or not he would get to land this massive role is really interesting to hear his perspective.
So typically, like when you're an actor, and any audition that you go to, like the whole, like the adage is like, forget about it.
Sure.
Leave it at the door, do your best job,
Yeah.
and then just forget about it, and if they call, they call, right? Yeah. This was not one of those times. This was like, every single second was excruciating, and every time my phone buzzed, my heart skipped a beat. Like,
Yeah.
it was a very unhealthy equilibrium state,
Right.
let's just say.
But one thing we think is really interesting is that Liu has talked about struggling with his identity and his family along the years of him growing up. And one thing that's really cool is how he was able to tell his parents that he finally got this massive job playing a character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and just the wholesome experience that he had with being able to share that point of his life with his family. Now, of course, jumping in and joining up with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the spotlight is definitely on Simu Liu now more than ever before, and that can be really interesting. So it's cool when we get to hear him talk a little bit about where he is now as an actor.
I mean, my parents are very muted in their reaction, so there was no screaming, but there was just a sense of like a pressure had been lifted. And my mom said, she actually said, next time I get the chance to retire, I'm gonna do it.
Hey.
And that just meant the absolute world to me because my parents have been working so hard ever since they came into this country.
Another really interesting thing is he's using his platform to really try to make and influence some big and positive changes, even now before his movie's even released, to the more widespread attention he's going to get when the film gets closer. It's really cool just to see how he's immediately jumped on to talk about some very important topics, things that more people need to be talking about, and right away he's immediately used his platform to spread awareness against things like Asian prejudice and hate, and he's kind of jumping on board in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, being the first Asian character to really get a main role as a frontrunner superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's awesome to see how Simu Liu talks about this a bit.
Actually, the whole way through, it's been talking about this rise in, anti-Asian hate and prejudice that's kind of unfortunately come about in the wake of COVID-19, and being kind of as outspoken about that as possible. So
what do you guys think of Simu Liu just based off of where he's been and where he's going now? We think he's actually a really great influence to join up with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He talks about a lot of the issues that are very important that more people need to talk about, but also he seems like a really stand-up guy, and he's a pretty great actor too. So it'll be interesting to see how this movie ends up playing out. But let us know what you think in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on for more videos like this uploaded every day of the week. That's it for today though. We'll see you all next time with a brand new video.